Okay, so I guess we can get started. Welcome everyone to our spring student and alumni panel, where we will be discussing our graduate programs in spatial analysis for public health. My name is Morgan Fredericks, and I am an admissions officer for that program. So I will be here available to answer any administrative questions and application questions in the chat as the panel goes forth. I think we can get it started with introductions, and I will kick it over to Frank to get us started with that.
Great. Thank you, Morgan, and welcome everybody. My name is Frank Curriero. I'm a professor in the epidemiology department here at Johns Hopkins, statistician by training, and been working in the field of spatial analysis probably for close to 25 years or more than 25 years. I direct the program with Tim Shields, who you'll hear from in a second, and we're excited to answer any questions you guys might have. And we have a panel of some alumni and current students to help us out with that. So Tim, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Shields. I am a geographer, is my background. And I guess I've been working at Hopkins 25 or so years, doing GIS applications in public health, which spans a wide array of things. Excited to be part of this program with Frank. And yeah, it's a great program. So glad you're here to check it out.
Great. I want to introduce some of our panelists, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Jack, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Jacqueline Zdebski, and I am a current student of the Spatial Analysis for Public Health program, and just about finishing up this in the next month. Very excited. And my day job is I am operations specialist at the National Science Foundation funded NEARI Rapid facility, which we do natural hazard reconnaissance. It's very multidisciplinary between engineering and public health.
Great. Thanks, Jacqueline. Craig, you want to go next?
Sure. Craig Daly. I graduated, I think it's over a year ago now. I'm currently employed with a company called Xylem, and I'm the director of analytics for them, but I'm actually going to be transitioning to a new job starting next Monday for the city of Baltimore. I've taken a position being the director of the water facilities. So basically, if you live in Baltimore, it's going to be my responsibility to make sure you get clean water.
Good to know, Craig. I know who to come to if we don't.
Yeah, really, Craig. You just set yourself up for some phone calls here.
You know who to contact.
And then Pregan, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are in the program?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Pregan Canal. So I'm a current student in the certificate program for spatial analysis and public health. So I'll be wrapping that up over the next month. I currently work as a research associate at Christiana Care, which is the largest healthcare system in Delaware. And pretty much all my research projects revolve around different spatial applications, which this program has been really great at helping me get training and experience for.
Great. Thank you to our panelists. And I guess now we will open it up for questions. So Tim and I will pepper our former and current students with some questions that we think might be helpful for you, but we also really want to hear from you guys. So we got a small enough group here, so please either raise your hand, unmute yourself, and you can certainly ask a question. I'll kick it off, and I think this can apply to anybody on the panel, but in terms of, can you tell us a little bit about what your expectations were coming into the program? And now that you have either finished the program or you are 98% close to finishing it, how have those expectations been realized for you? And Jacqueline, you want to go first?
Sure. I guess I didn't have a too much of an idea about the nitty gritty of it all, and I assumed there would be a lot of ArcGIS because that was a requisite for the program, but it went much farther than that. I think the statistical analysis using R and a lot of the discussions around statistics has been really interesting to me and has really expanded my expectation of the field in general and what I can do within it. So that's been kind of something I didn't expect. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to hear your perspective on things. Craig, how about you? Expectations coming in and now that you've actually graduated and been out for a year.
Yeah, I think when I was looking at programs before I actually went into the program, I was looking for something that was a little less Esri centric, if you will. And I think a lot of programs out there that I saw were really, more about application of the package using Esri, and particularly in North America, I think everything's very Esri centric. And I wanted to make sure that I learned the fundamentals behind some of the applications within the Esri package. So, spatial clustering, like how does that actually work? And when I saw the program, I was like, okay, it looks like they're going to cover that stuff. It looks like they're going to sort of get into really how to perform that sort of analysis and understand that the goings on behind the scenes a little bit. And coming out of it, that's definitely what I got. I learned more about the actual statistics as opposed to just how to run something within a package. And again, so I'd say it definitely met my expectations in terms of what I wanted to get out of it. And actually, ironically enough, it helped out with my interview with Baltimore and getting the position that I now have. Because just because I'm dealing with water treatment and running the treatment aspects of the water quality is actually out in the system. So it's actually distributed out in the system. So if we're trying to look for where poor quality water might occur, then we're going to want to know, hey, is there something going on somewhere in the system that's leading to high water age or generation of taste and odor problems and things like that, and they'll tend to cluster. And so the tools that I've been handed allow me to sort of at least analyze across the system as to where issues may be going, and then I can sort of backtrack to why are they happening that way. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that sort of maybe answers, and then maybe goes a little bit beyond in terms of just what I did after graduation.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that, Craig. And you've hit a lot of things. You hit the nail on the head on a lot of things. I want to come back to that Esri stuff here in a minute. But I just want to give Craig a minute to talk about expectations coming in and how have they been realized or changed for the better or worse, given that you're almost done.
Yeah. So on the ArcGIS and mapping side, the thing I was really looking for is experience with our program has done a really good job of breaking things down. I was a little nervous and hesitant about making the transition to Pro. I'm at my current role, we still use ArcMap. So the exposure to Pro through the program has been really great. I feel much more equipped to, once we eventually make that switch over, to be able to use some of the features in Pro. On the spatial stats side, I mean, it's been a really great learning experience in R, and the program has done a really great job of breaking down how all the different analyses are done, really helping you understand the code. I feel like I've become a much more proficient R coder in general, just through the entire process.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Craig touched on a point, about wanting to find a program that's not Esri centric. So just to clarify, ESRI or Esri, that's the company that makes the ArcGIS, ArcPro software line. And I think a lot of programs out there, Craig, are GIS or Esri centric, and you're just learning everything out of GIS or ArcGIS. One of the selling points of our program is, we provide half of our spatial analysis instruction is in the Esri software, the ArcPro software, because you need to know that. But a substantial component, I would say half or maybe a little bit more than half, is about analyzing the data and learning how to do statistics and analyze maps rather than, from a pull down menu or a push button and having the machine work for you and not really understanding the underpinnings. That'll only get you so far, that drop down or the push button approach. And so we try to distinguish our program from other programs out there by providing dedicated instruction courses in the area of spatial statistics, which are the methods that sort of allow us to go beyond the map in a sense. With that said, as each of you were looking for programs, can you mention, or do you remember any that you might have come across and why you might have chose Hopkins as opposed to some of those other programs? And I guess we can always go in the same order, right? So Jackie, Craig, and Craig in.
Sure. I did look at quite a few programs, and the public health aspect, the fact that Johns Hopkins is the #1 public health school, and that was one of the major factors for me, because I am more associated with the public health side of things. There are a lot of data programs out there, and they don't really touch on that. They don't teach you how to integrate those things. So personally, that was my draw.
Great, Craig.
Yeah, I looked at a number of programs. Even the I think Hopkins has another within the Krieger Schools of Arts and Science, another GIS program.
Right. Very Esri
but
centric.
I think, yeah, and again, I think what Esri centric, or in a lot of cases they're more sort of engineering or map related, and I wasn't really looking for anything like, I've already got another master's in engineering, so I didn't really want anything that was more engineering related. I wanted something that was really getting into fundamentally understanding how to analyze spatial data, and I didn't really find anything else out there that sort of really just focused on those aspects. I mean, the public health aspects is also relevant because, from what I do in water, like it's really protecting the public health. So that was a relevant aspect of it. But it wasn't sort of the primary driver for me. It was really just trying to understand more about the spatial analysis and the spatial statistics. And, to that end, it's like, I think the elements that are brought within this program as well, like even when you use Esri or QGIS, I think Tim covers a little bit of QGIS and Magpie and other applications. I think that you still need those and some exposure to those things in order to do the analysis, because there's some data wrangling and things that just are a lot easier using those packages. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I was looking for something that was a bit more on the statistical side of things and allowed me to analyze spatial statistical data in particular.
Right. Again.
I agree with what Jackie said. I was looking for something that had sort of that emphasis on public health, and Johns Hopkins obviously has a great reputation in that field. But I was also fortunate to have a colleague in my role who kind of helped train me in some of these things and exposed me to the spatial world, who had graduated from this program as well, who kind of recommended this program and had great experiences from that. So this was definitely one of my top choices.
Okay, great.
Frank, I was going to just add in there just a clarification or added comment, maybe it's a better way to state it. While our GIS is done in ArcGIS, which is Esri centric in that sense, we do focus more on the principles behind this, all the GIS principles with all the features and the functions. So which lends ourselves to, so we actually start using QGIS in the second term just as a proof of concept that we, all these principles we've been learning and hold, even though now the menus and the buttons are in different places. So while we use ArcPro because it's the nation or the industry's standard, it's the leader of the whole industry, you're well equipped to jump into any other GIS, with the knowledge that you have there.
It was a good time to open it up to see if any of our attendees have questions. Don't be shy, guys. Now's the time to ask.
Maybe we can ask them the same question if go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. So I think there's some of you are doing the master's and or did the master's, and some of you are doing the certificate. Is that right? Could you kind of talk to the pros and cons of maybe why you chose one over the other?
I'll go first, I guess.
You
go
go
ahead.
Craig.
No, go ahead. I'm mixing it up. You go ahead.
We'll keep our order, okay? Jack, Craig, and Frederick.
So I work in academia, and so it's important to me. I didn't actually already have a master's degree, so that was part of the draw for me, was just getting a master's degree in the process. When you work in research, and then also certain government levels, they do like you to have a master's degree. And if you don't already have one, like Craig, then that makes sense. You can double up masters, you can get multiple of them, and that's useful too. So for me, that made sense, just to get a master's.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I didn't want to sort of do the certificate and feel like I missed out on some of the coursework. So I just went full in for the master's, just to make sure I covered all the bases, I think.
Okay, great. Regan?
So I chose the certificate program. I came in, I have a master's in health informatics already, and I was looking for a way to kind of supplement some knowledge that I had about like electronic health systems and records, and kind of find a way to enrich clinical data with a geographic sense. So I was really looking for something that would help me kind of get at specific experience in that realm, not necessarily another master's program, but that was kind of my decision-making process there.
Sure, and two key points to distinguish between the MAS justice and the certificate. One important thing is the spatial classes, whether it's the GIS, spatial statistics, and we also have lab classes. All those classes are exactly the same, whether you're a certificate or an MAS student. So our classes have a mix of people that are in for certificates and a mix of those that are the 2-year MAS. So the certificate is a 1-year program. You'll just take all the spatial classes in 1 year. The MAS is for students that don't come in with necessarily that public health background. They don't have prior knowledge in epidemiology and maybe aren't that strong in biostatistics and the quantitative sciences. So they'll do the whole MAS, and they'll get a mix of spatial stuff in the first year and epi and biostat, and then the following year epi and biostat, and then they'll also end with the spatial statistics. So but the spatial classes between the MAS and the certificate are exactly the same. So you'll be in together with those students. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Katrina, Ed, Kate, Nicole, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. So I'm interested in learning more about some of the research opportunities and the potential opportunities to engage in practical work. And I know that some of that does occur through the coursework itself. But I think you learn the best when you're really when you really have to use those skills in a setting that's maybe a little less structured, right? So I just wondered what types of unstructured opportunities are there to use this maybe in a guided approach with members of the team.
Yeah, so there is for those in the MAS, there is part of the programs called an integrative activity, like a capstone, like a thesis. And another distinguishing feature that we like to advertise as a distinguishing feature of our program is we allow students to bring in their own data. Okay, so the integrative activity, you actually start for the MAS, you start thinking about that in year 1. Okay, and you start formulating things over the summer, and then also as you start your 2nd year. And then in the last term of the course, last term of the program, in 4th term of the 2nd year, there's a whole course dedicated to the integrative activity. And this is where you're analyzing your own data. You brought it in, and throughout the 2 years, we helped you sort of design objectives and aims and approach how you would do that. And now you go and apply that. So that is an opportunity to get sort of that practice in an area that you're interested in, maybe an area that comes from your current job or just something that you're interested in. So we allow students to do that. And I think that's a great opportunity for students. It's not required. If you don't have a data set of your own to bring in and to analyze and form a integrative activity around, we will provide you with a set of, we call them design projects, that we have data set and a set of objectives, and we can kind of give them to you. But you're kind of, you know, as you're going through the courses, we're telling you how to do things, and it's sort of like textbook type examples, you know. But when you do the integrative activity, we don't give you any instructions because everybody's doing something different. So you pretty much have to, you know, a lot of times students come to us and say, God, I don't even know how to get started. That's sort of like the hardest question, you know. And then once you just say, well, start back with mapping the data. That's the first step, is get it all on a map. And then they start cluing into all the stuff they learned in ArcGIS in those courses and in the spatial statistics courses. And a lot of it just begins to flow and snowball up. And yes, I think that's a great experience for those in the MAS, the 2-year MAS certificates. There's no time to do the integrative activity. It's just 1 year straight coursework.
Sure, and I'll add to that, Frank, too, or Nicole as well. You know, any student on the Hopkins campus, or you know, in these online programs, you know, you're on a million email lists. So people are advertising, hey, I need a student to help, you know, the research, you know, position. So, you know, when we get them that are more GIS spatially oriented, we'll, you know, broadcast that out to the class and let people try to get linked up with other researchers, you know, on a very specific project. So some of those opportunities are around too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say I really got a lot out of the integrative activity, actually. You know, you kind of go through courses and you're focusing on certain elements as you go through. But what the integrative activity did was like, yeah, now I got to figure out how to apply all that stuff that I learned. And it's just like what you said is like, you know, you learn more through the application. And again, and as Frank points out, is like, yeah, like how do I actually start now that I've got this data, and you know, how do I actually start trying to, you know, figure out what to do with this data and how to organize it. And then, you know, I think I ran into some challenges with actually which type of statistical analysis to perform on it, because, you know, the data was such that it didn't fit sort of exactly into the mold of what we went through in some of the courses. And so you kind of actually have to really maybe stretch yourself a little bit. And I think, you know, I'd say I certainly stretched myself and learned a lot just through that process.
Yeah, and they never will fit that mold exactly that you learned in class. That's why I said the textbook examples, you know, we've gone through it. We know how to get from the beginning to the end. Everybody comes in with their own data. So it's Tim and I that are helping to mentor students through that integrative activity. And just in case you're curious, it's Tim and I that teach all the courses in terms of the spatial stuff. You know, the epi and the biostat that's taught by other faculty.
Yeah, the other piece that I think I learned was, and I think Tim, you know, a lot of the actual GIS and stuff, like where do you get data, how do you get it, how do you bring it in, how do you make sure that, you know, it's where you want it, and sort of that sort of stuff is really critical, because again, when you're doing the spatial analysis, if you don't bring it in right, if you don't set it in the right location, you're going to get the wrong result. So you have to sort of make sure you when you port the data through, that you port it into the right, you know, georeferencing and all these sorts of things. So again, I think that's one of the elements of the program, is it teaches you like, hey, it's not just the analysis, it's like knowing the data and how to use and bring the data in.
Yeah, you remind me of something, Craig, that we should mention, that, you know, Tim and I, we've been working together here at Hopkins for close to those 20 plus years. And the field of spatial analysis has evolved over time. And Tim and I, we sort of go by this, what we call the spatial science paradigm, that guides a lot of our, not only our research, but our teaching, both on site and with this online program. And that spatial science paradigm has 3 components to it. It's spatial data, so it's the availability and accessibility to spatial data. Where do I get it? How do I get it? And all these kind of things. And then the second component is a GIS. You know, so GIS is a great map making software, but it's so much more than that, because it's this functional software that allows you to bring in data, integrate data from all these different sources, bring it all together, spatially link it, and make that map, okay, and link all that data together, okay, and that's sort of like an endpoint of GIS. And then the third component is spatial statistics, where we start with the map, you know, and the data is all already linked together, and now we go and we actually analyze the trends and clustering, cluster detection, all that kind of neat stuff. So that's sort of the paradigm that we do on site with our research and education, and we've translated that over into this program.
I was going to add another aspect to your question, Nicole, that if you do have data you want to look at, or there's a question you have about something that's not in the class, there's plenty of opportunities to bring it up. There's message boards, there's office hours. Tim and Frank make themselves both available during the classes they teach to discuss other aspects of spatial analysis that maybe aren't directly addressed in the class. It is like being in a classroom in person. You do have access to the instructors and the TAs on a regular basis. So if there is something you're looking at, or another project that's associated by subject, you can have an opportunity to discuss it within the class context.
Yeah, great point, Jack. Thanks for bringing that up. And so everybody's aware, the program is 100% online, right? So the lectures are pre-recorded, and you'll see Tim and I in these recordings. And I apologize if we might look a year or two younger than we do now, but we recorded them back just a few years ago. And but we also have what's called live talks, which is like what we're doing here now. So 3 or 4 times a term, so every course, either 3 or 4 times, we will have live talks in the evening on Eastern Standard Time, and we just get together like this. And sometimes we have a format for those live talks. Hey, I want to give a lecture, I want to give a presentation, or something neat to do in ArcGIS or R with analysis to give everybody a little bit more information than what was covered in the lectures. But a lot of times we just leave it open like this, and students ask questions. We talk about things, and it's a very more relaxed collegial environment with the live talks. And I think those are really important to get connected with us, not just listening and hearing us. So and the TAs, the teaching assistants, we don't have a different one for each class. We have a dedicated teaching assistant, and she is with us for every spatial class. So you get to know her, term 1 in year 1. And if you're an MAS student, you'll see her in year 2. If you're a certificate, you'll see her, throughout the year in all the spatial classes. So that helps in getting that relationship together with the teaching team and yourself.
Jack, I was going to ask you, or put it out to the panel here, because I understand too, there's another element of getting support too, and it's from the fellow students. And I know there's like informal, study groups, and so maybe can you guys touch on, I don't know, collaboration with other students in the cohort?
Craig, why don't you go first? I know you're dying to go first.
Yeah, I mean, and if I think Frank, and same with you, Tim. I think myself and 2 other partners in crime throughout the whole program, we pretty much collaborated, and it's really started with, I think it was in the first EPI course, where they had us sort of break out into groups, and I'd highly recommend, if you do get sort of broken out into a group or something, that you just continue that contact, because it was really invaluable working with a couple of other people, because when you're working on a problem, you just want to sort of get together and say, I just want to talk through it. And so we would always get together on a weekly basis and talk through problems, or get ready for a test and stuff like that. And we just literally religiously every week we had a meeting, and that really helped. It also helped to connect with some other people within the program, and I mean, it doesn't have to be 2 people. I mean, I just happened to luck out with a couple of people that we just worked well together with. But you could change groups up, you can do whatever you want, but I highly recommend working with other students as well, and just trying to reach out and set up times where you guys can meet and collaborate.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience with a group of us. We identified very early on that we were in it for the next 2 years together. And so there was a message board created, and people have been in and out of touch over the last couple of years for different classes. There's been, I think, biostatistics and epidemiology there's a really large classes at Hopkins, even online. And so having our spatial analysis group to discuss the different points that we were learning in those classes in terms of what we were trying to get out of the spatial analysis courses was really helpful.
Sorry to
I'm
be
still in contact with.
joining a little bit
sorry.
late. As it comes to forming groups, about how many students are in each cohort from which these groups may be drawn?
Yeah, great question, Bill. I'll see if I can give you some specific numbers. We started out with 55. We went down to 40. I think it was in high 20s and up to 35. This year, I think we're around 18, possibly. Yeah, so it varies. I think it's hovering now around 20 to 30, I would say. Sometimes we have
Perfect, thank you.
smaller cohorts. I think there's a small cohort in there somewhere.
And Bill, just to explain, the spatial classes, these are Frank's giving you the numbers for those cohorts.
Yeah.
But there's other OPAL programs, like patient safety and I forget the other one.
Population health.
health. Yeah. And so the EPI and the biostat courses, all these cohorts join, they take those courses together. So that those classes get, much bigger. You'll be mixed in with other programs.
And
Gotcha.
Hopkins love
Thank
the
you.
big classes, right? Because that's tuition money. Tim and I love the smaller cohorts, because it really gives us a chance for more one-on-one interaction with students. So I think it's hovering right around 20 now per year.
Terrific, thank you.
Yeah, I'm still in contact with the people that I was, working through the program with. So
Yeah, that's great
I
to
think
hear.
that
I think that's ideal, that you can make these friendships and they last beyond the program.
Kind of oh, sorry. I was gonna say kind of a neat aspect of the program is at the end for graduation, people come into town for graduation. So we'll organize a social event the night before, which is maybe the first time a lot of people in the cohort actually physically get to meet each other. So that's kind of a fun place to see that.
Yeah, and it's great for us to meet everybody too, because that's the first time that we get to meet them face to face.
I was just going to add it's, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say there's a LinkedIn group as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I was just going to add that my cohort at least involves a lot of different people from different industries. So there's government, academia, private industry, and so it's really interesting to talk to people that are going to be applying this in different ways. So it's also kind of neat. It gives you new ideas. So I know I have an idea of how I'm going to apply this learning, but adding to it other people's ideas is really interesting too. You also get to see different data sets and how people use them when it comes to the integrative activity, whereas you might not be exposed to that type of data in your field.
Are there any more questions from our attendees?
I have another one, and I think that this has already been touched on to some extent, but networking opportunities, right? Because I think that, sometimes with courses that are completely remote, it can be harder. You might have a group of 2 or 3 that you get close to, right? That becomes your core group. But I just wondered if there are other opportunities that are kind of built in or baked in, not just to really encourage getting to know other folks in your cohort, but also getting to know the field more broadly and, some of the folks who are maybe the players in the field outside of Hopkins. So in other words, are there, seminars that are that students are able to attend, and, other ways to just, become invested, as a member in the field?
Yeah, great question, Nicole. I'll let the panel go too if they have any feedback on this. But as a student in the online program, you're no different than a student on site. All right, so you get all the emails about seminars and other events that are going on. You're not here, although we do have some people that are local sometimes, and they do come by. But a lot of things now are on Zoom, still on Zoom, and I suspect they will be on Zoom for the next year or two. And even when more in-person attendance goes semi back to normal, I don't think it's ever going to get back to normal. I think Zoom will still be an option for events and seminars. So that is certainly out there.
Yeah,
But
and I
you know,
think you're just about guaranteed a seminar every day at lunchtime, so you never have to
Yeah.
eat lunch alone. If you want to chime in, and whatever topic of the day is, there's always something going on.
yeah.
And there's dean's talks and all other special talks too that they'll be advertised to you, so you can link into those.
Yeah, I think it's more not, is there opportunity and are you getting notification? It's like, how much do you want to attend? How much can you attend? So yeah, it's like you'll see the emails coming through. It's like, oh, that sounds really interesting. That's like, but it's like, well, do I have the time? So again, it's on you to determine, how much you want to try and, attend those things, I think.
And in terms of networking, once you've gone through the program or going through the program, attending conferences out there are plenty of conferences, and now you know what to look for in terms of talks that include GIS, spatial analysis, these kind of things. And I think you'll have a much greater appreciation for sitting in on those talks and can be a critical consumer of what's being presented.
World GIS Day.
Yeah. We
Mid-
have a celebration every year at school on GIS Day.
Mid-November, yeah.
Students too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was able to attend GIS Day, and I presented a poster, and that was a really great opportunity to kind of see the campus. I'm lucky enough to only be about an hour away from Baltimore, but just to be able to attend and meet Frank in person, see some of the other people from the Spatial Science Center, and just learn about all the different spatial work that goes on at Hopkins was a really cool experience. And I'll add for the as a student, even being online, there are opportunities for joining like student clubs as well. Being in the health services research field, I've been able to attend some of the Academy of Health student club meetings at Hopkins, which has been really good because those are still, it's hybrid now, but there's still online meetings just through Zoom, and people are spread out across the country as well. So that has been a really cool opportunity to be able to still be involved in, even being online.
Thank you.
I had a question. I wonder if you could talk about how you feel you were able to balance the course load with maybe some of your other responsibilities or commitments.
Jack, I'll let you go first again now. No, wait. Maybe no, Craig hasn't gone first yet. I'm sorry. I don't want to keep making you last. Craig, you can go first.
It's been manageable. Challenging but manageable. I think it's it's for me. I like to kind of plan my week out ahead of time and watch like the lectures like over the weekdays and in the evenings after work, and then work on the assignments mainly during on the weekends. Like everyone has their different preferences and different timelines, and there's always challenges that come with that, but I've found it fairly manageable.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, like Reagan, I'm on the same schedule. During the week, it's really difficult. I work full-time or more than full-time sometimes for my day job. And so I do a lot of the work on the weekend. I feel like the assignments and the class load are very well spread out so that there is an option if weekdays are easier for you or weekends. I know some people in the class have families, and so they're less likely to be able to work on things on the weekends. And so the way the assignments are spread out, you can choose either or. And then I do natural disaster reconnaissance. So occasionally there's a weekend that I have to jet really suddenly, and people are really responsive if you tell them ahead of time that you need a little more time, or you kind of have to adjust your schedule a little bit. They're really responsive for that.
Yeah, I work full time. I got 3 kids. COVID did me a favor because, we were now confined to the household and couldn't do a lot of the same activities. So maybe the timing was a good thing for me in terms of, starting the program during COVID. But even so, I mean, I think, like the way the assignments are sort of paced out, they're not, you can always find a little bit of time here and there to do that. The other thing is I'm one of these people that gets up ridiculously early. So I'm like up at 4 a.m. So I've always got about from 4 till about 7 or 8 in the morning before the day really kicks in for me. So I would just dedicate my time to getting things out that way. But just being diligent and just finding planning out the time, making sure you got a bit of time, and you're focusing on what you want to get done throughout the week. And again, not worrying about if I don't get everything done today, but I'll just chip away at it for the week is important. The other thing I'll add is, if you're going to go to the master's and do the integrative activity, the way it is structured is really helpful because, in the first part of the program, say, okay, you got to put together your proposal document, and it builds through the program. And so what you really, I would highly recommend is, build it through the program and, really think about early on how you want to move through it, and then get your data, start thinking about your data, start thinking about how you're going to write things out. But again, the way it's structured, it builds. So it's important to sort of, be focused on the build as it goes through and not sort of say, I'm going to worry about that later on. Don't put off tomorrow for what you can get done today kind of thing. So, but that's, again, just how the whole program is structured is sort of, it does accommodate people with a busy schedule.
And Hopkins is on quarters rather than semesters, right? So we have 8-week terms. So there's 4 quarters in the academic year, terms 1, 2, 3, and 4. And 8 weeks goes by fast. So there's no real lull in what's going on. And if you're in the MAS, you're probably taking, or you could take, 6 credits a term. So a lot of times the terms are split up into one solid class, like an epi class, a biostat class, or a spatial analysis class, and then sort of like a 2-credit professional development class, journal club class, these kind of things. So you usually don't take more than that. You can certainly take less than that and extend the program over more than 2 years. The certificate students are just taking 4 credits each term. There might be one term where they also take a journal club class, but it's pretty much just 1 class per term type thing. And Tim will tell you, we often get emails, hey, my kid's been sick, or this happened, and we understand life happens with everybody. You're not here on site and going to school full time and living at home and those kind of things. So it's a little different. It's a little different scenario for a lot of our students, and we're completely flexible in terms of, hey, I couldn't get it to this week. It was just a crazy week. Can I have another couple days for the assignment? And that's never an issue for us. I mean, our goal is to make sure you learn the material. If you learn the material, handing the assignment in every time 3 days and what the date we put down for it, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, actually, you reminded me, like the term the structure and just the terms of the quarters was a lot better than when I did my other masters, where I was doing semesters. And there was just, it seemed like the semester, they figured, well, we got a lot of time and we're going to try to pack as much into that as we can. And it was a lot more work because it drug out, or it felt like a lot more because it drug out. Whereas this, you go through and you're knocking things out and you feel like you're progressing all the way. And I think that's motivational in a way, because you are, getting stuff done.
Yeah, there's no time to, it's a heavy run from start to finish, with 8 weeks, which is good. There's no opportunity to really kind of slack off and say, okay, I have a couple weeks before I have to worry about this. So you won't have that.
And maybe just to mention, summertimes there's nothing scheduled in summertimes. So that's also your time.
Works out well with kids.
Yes.
Although we hope you're chewing on the IA during summer one, thinking about it, but there's no meetings, no classes, no assignments. Yeah. We just planted seeds at the end of year one that we hope are tantalizing you through the summer, but
Yeah, I second what Craig said. It goes, you feel motivated, and the way the quarters are set up, it kind of just draws you through really quickly. And before you know it, you're in your last month. And I can't believe that 2 years of instruction have gone by, but learned a lot.
I definitely like the 8-week terms as well. It really forces you to just stay on top of things. With ArcGIS and R, all the assignments, it's not something you do want to. It's not something you want to kind of save for the last minute. There's always bound to be software crashes or bugs and stuff. So it really does force you to make incremental progress towards on your assignments on the work.
Yeah, and hey, if you don't like it, it's over in 8 weeks, right? It's just a lot better than 15 weeks. Other questions from our prospective students?
I apologize in advance if I missed this earlier, and if you want to push me to defer to the recording, I'm happy to. But I'm about 1 step removed or 2 steps removed now from access to hands-on data. Long story short, was academic career, had to step away for family purposes, that sort of thing. And I'm wondering if, for the purposes of the course requirements, you either have synthetic data or pre-prepared data sets that may be usable, or if there's an opportunity to partner with ongoing research programs, perhaps to pick up a piece of what they're working on for those purposes.
Yeah, sure, Bill. See, I think you're talking about the integrative activity, right? Where we allow students to bring in their own data and form their own project around that. For those that do not have that, yeah, we do have not synthetic data, we have real data. We have 3 what we call design projects. One is doing, I think, a food desert. One is analyzing health outcomes in Texas, and the other one is air pollution in California. And these come with their own data, their own sets of objectives, and those you will use to follow through with the data analysis portion of your integrative activity. But what we do is, so that integrative activity has 2 parts to it. It has a proposal part, and everybody writes a proposal. And so even if you don't have your own data, you would write this proposal and develop it through the program as though you would get that data. So this is a time to do some literature research on an area that you're interested in and kind of build a spatial analysis project around that. And so that proposal is one part of the integrative activity. Once that proposal is done, okay, then students can have a fork in the road. They can either continue on and actually analyze the data that they talked about in their proposal, or they can switch to one of these design projects that I just talked about.
Terrific, that's helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just to piggyback on that, when I wrote my proposal, there's a lot of publicly available data out there now on the web too, and you can grab stuff. I mean, census is one of the biggest sort of sources you can grab publicly available information on. I think I grabbed voter outcomes as well, and a few other data sources that were just open. But when I wrote my proposal, I had sort of a thesis in mind, and when I wrote the proposal, I went out and I verified that those data sets be available, or if not available, if I could, find a way to get some of the information either through, reaching out and getting an account or something like that. So there is a lot of data on the web that's available that you can grab. It just depends on really what you want to do.
And I was going to add that the fellow students generally have some connection to data too, and have ideas about what data is out there and what you can use, because they're coming from all over the place. And I know that in my cohort, students have been suggesting data to each other, depending on what they're interested in. So that's been really cool.
Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say thank you very much. It's very reassuring. Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything we haven't touched on? Anything people are curious about that we haven't touched on about the program? we're coming up on the hour, so I want to give our panelists an opportunity just to give any parting comments or feedback to you guys in terms of, maybe what you like the best about the program, what you like the least. You don't have to mention anything of that, but just anything you want to share with the group. And I guess we'll go in our original order. So Jack, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I really appreciated this program in that I have been a full student of Johns Hopkins. And like Craig mentioned, there's been lots of opportunities coming through email for networking or opportunities, and being a master's student and not being able to do that in person and having this instead, I feel like I'm not missing out on anything. I've gone through a full master's program as a master's student, and I've had all of the resources that you would expect when doing that. And that's been a really great experience.
Great. Thank you for that, Jack. Craig?
Maybe I'll see if I can share my screen here in a minute, see if I can pull something up. Because it's left me with the ability to make this kind of application. I don't know if can you guys see what I've got up here?
Yeah, it just came up now.
Okay, so this is a very simple thing. I think this maybe answers Bill's question a little bit. Is like, this is a public available data set. It's water main breaks for the Washington, D.C. And, I can pull up the breaks, and I can sort of filter through and remove, break information. Underlying it, you can see these polygons under here, and that's, a z-score that helps me understand how many standard deviations away from the mean the breaks are. And it kind of allows me to then sort of look at these things and, pull a pop-up and says, okay, well, that's a really high z-score. It's 4 or almost 5 standard deviations above the mean of breaks across the city. And so that tells me that's a problematic area. So, I can now, build these cool applications that allow us to communicate information to stakeholders, like DC stakeholders in this particular case, that can help them make decisions on where should I invest some money, where should I invest money to rehab repair my system. I don't have to rehab repair everywhere, for example. So that's what I appreciate the most probably about the program is I can now build these sorts of tools myself and use them. And now in the position that I'm going to with Baltimore, because this is simply just XY ingestion data. It doesn't have to be a main break. It can be anything. It can be water quality. It can be total trihallomethanes or haloacetic acid readings or something of that nature. As long as it's got an XY coordinate, I can now see spatially where things are happening. I can run an analysis that then informs me of do I have a problem area or don't I have a problem area, and then I can start thinking about the actions I need to take on that. And so having these spatial tools in hand allow me to understand what's going across a large landscape and where I need to prioritize my efforts and my time.
That's impressive, Greg. And I should mention, so dashboards, they're all the thing now, coming from that Hopkins COVID dashboard, which is a great advertisement for what spatial analysis can do. The map really makes people think. But we don't necessarily teach dashboard specific techniques in our program, but Craig, you've learned enough that's something now that you can pick up on your own, and that can be said for a lot of the things we talk about in class. And we only have so many courses we can go through, but you learn enough of the foundation that you're comfortable go out and I can learn a dashboard now. Now I know what I'm doing with it, software.
Exactly. I'd actually built the confidence to say like, okay, if I can do this, then I know I can do that. And you just then you learn the process of trying to figure out how to do these things. And again, that's part of the whole learning experience.
Great. Thank you for that. Reagan, parting comments?
Overall, I mean, it's been a great experience. Learned a lot, over the course of the past months, year. But I mean, what kind of in line with what you were saying, there's a lot that you learn in the program that can be applied to additional spatial applications that really set you up to or give you that foundation to really understand those applications better. I mentioned earlier, like I feel like I've been become much more proficient R coder working in R. as a result of the program as well. Kind of digging even deeper into the spatial related packages that we use, and really understanding all the different parameters and analyses for those for spatial statistics. It's been a great way to kind of be able to apply what I'm learning right away in the work that I do. Just even as like through my courses, being able to apply that directly to the research projects I'm working on, figure out what research questions to ask, has been a result of kind of being in that sphere, being in the program. Even being a certificate student, I'm not doing an integrative activity, but one thing I feel like I've been exposed to a lot of like spatial data sources, just learning what's out there in terms of what I could do, with additional spatial related work that I could add to my own personal portfolio as well.
Great. Thank you guys for that. I just want to also add, as we wrap things up, is that I get emails from time to time from prospective students, and I welcome them. And I've also had several one-on-one Zoom calls like this, where it's sometimes more efficient just to talk, for 10 or 15 minutes on a Zoom call rather than going back and forth in emails. So you're welcome to reach out to me and Tim directly, or via the Opal office. We're easy enough to find in a sense, but you can always certainly go through the Opal office to get in contact with us. When it comes to administrative stuff, tuition, all these kind of things, I would stick with the Opal office. But if it's content about the program and the courses, you're welcome to reach out to Tim and I. Morgan, do you have any parting comments before we let everybody go?
Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. It was a really great discussion. For all administrative stuff, application stuff, feel free to reach out to me as well. I also see the Opal inbox, so if that's easier, always reach out as well.
Great, thank you. And thank you for everybody joining. Special thanks to Jack, Craig, and Pregan for taking the time and helping us promote the program and answer the questions. And Justice, Katrina, and Ed, and everybody else that is listening in and couldn't stay for until now. Just reach out if you have any questions, and we hope to see you soon in the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This was really helpful.
Thanks.